Today we're highlighting the inspiring work of a remarkable community leader, Kathy Kaplan. Kathy was awarded the Medal of the Order of Australia for her outstanding service to the community, especially her support for women and children escaping domestic and family violence. As the founder of Impact for Women, Kathy has helped mobilise thousands of volunteers across Victoria and has provided practical and emotional support to families in crisis. Today, we'll explore the story behind the organisation, the impact it has had on the community, and the importance of compassion and volunteerism. Welcome to Monday Matters. I'm Ian Bunston. Welcome, Kathy. Lovely to have you as a guest here at Monday Matters today.
Thank you for inviting me in.
Kathy, I can't but help start off with saying this. I woke up this morning listening to the ABC News and I hear this, that New South Wales Police have charged nearly 1,000 people with more than 2,000 charges in total as part of a statewide operation targeting offenders with a history of domestic violence. What's your reaction to that?
I'm surprised it's only that number. It could and should be much more than that. So it's a pervasive pandemic like coronavirus was. It's just pervasive.
It's in one way, it's like bittersweet. Like it's great that they've been able to at least start this process, but what a sad story that it's presenting.
Well, especially if you put that on the back of last week, we lost 3 Australian women to domestic violence, and we suspect a fourth. There's a fourth woman that's been killed that we're not yet sure about. So 3 or 4 in 1 week is not a good look.
Yes. Kathy, what first triggered you to establish Impact for Women way back in 2006? And what community need were you hoping to address?
Well, I wasn't actually. It was all an accident. I'm a full-time mum, sole mum, and so working very, very full-time to support my children. I was also the president of a large communal organisation, and my term came to an end. And any of you guys and ladies who have organised any community or any committee or any organisation know it only takes you 5 minutes a week, doesn't it? So I had 5 spare minutes up my sleeve every week. And it was coming up to Mother's Day. And of course, this is pre-social media and all the rest. So all I could see were TV advertisements, newspaper advertisements, billboards, happy mummies getting electrical appliances and chocolates that we neither need nor want for Mother's Day. And I thought there'd be an awful lot of us who don't even get that. And so I thought, well, I want to do something about that as a once-off nice thing gesture. So I got 12 friends together. I did some research, very poor research as it turns out, and I thought that there were 100 Victorian women in hiding at any one time because of domestic violence. So 12 friends of us got together, we got a few donations, we packed 100 little gift boxes. I got them off to the couple of refuges that I knew of. Chip chop, job done, move on, Kathy. And then the thank you note started. And the one that still kicks me in my belly is the one that told me that was the first ever Mother's Day gift she had received that did not include a black eye. And so Impact was born. So we moved from that 12 friends and 100 little gift boxes to when I retired as president 18 months ago to more than 2,000 volunteers packing 5,000 large bags of love and more every year.
Kathy, it's a remarkable story. So to go a bit further, Impact for Women has expanded into a much broader support network. Can you tell us about some of the key programs and services the organisation now provides?
Well, with change of leadership comes change of focus occasionally. So I'll speak as to what it was until I retired as president, okay?
Yeah.
And you need to know I was running that as a volunteer. We had no paid staff whatsoever. So all of this was done completely voluntarily with no government support. So we did lots and lots of different things. So in the early days, I started going to visit the refuges and I asked questions that people had not thought of in the early 2000s, like, what do you do for culturally diverse women? How do you deal with somebody who identifies as a religious Jew or as a committed Muslim with their dietary requirements? Nobody had thought about those sorts of things before. So we then purchased large tubs marked one halal, marked one kosher, and we filled it with cooking implements, tea towels, washing cloths, plates, cups, and everything, so that if a woman had, when you go to a refuge, you've lost everything. You've lost everything and everyone. You can't tell your family and friends where you are because, of course, they're the first people that your perpetrator will go to say, where the hell is she? So you can't tell anyone. You've got nothing. I felt that at least let people eat according to their religious principles, if nothing else. So we did that. We provided prayer mats and for Muslim women for Ramadan. We provided multicultural dictionaries to the different refuges because many of them have lots of people from lots of different language backgrounds. Then we moved on to lots of different things. We started funding refuges to send the children to camps on holidays to give them a bit of a pleasurable experience. Then I heard from the police partners that we had, just a throwaway line. Inspector Burney said, "It's really frustrating that there's no childcare in family courts." And I said, "I beg your pardon?" And he said, "There's no childcare in family courts." I said, "What do you mean there's no childcare in family courts?" So think about it. A woman had to move to another part of Victoria. She's got no family support, can't use her credit card because, of course, or her mobile, because those bills will go home and the perpetrator can work out where she is from those. She probably doesn't have access to much cash. And who's she going to get to look after the children? So she has to take the children with her to court to get her whatever she needs to do. She thinks she's only going to be there for an hour. She ends up being there all day. In the same waiting room as is the perpetrator. The children are getting tired. They're getting hungry. They're getting irritable. They're tugging at her, "Mummy, mummy, mummy." They have to hear and relive what they've experienced or witnessed. They're hearing things that they shouldn't be hearing. And as I said, they're within arm's reach of their perpetrator. So I thought that was absolutely intolerable. So I became a real thorn in just about every politician's side, visiting them saying, "This is no good, you have to do something about it." And everybody was horrified. "What do you mean there's no child, blah, 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 blah." But of course, nobody does anything. So what we did at Impact was we approached Moorabbin Court and said, if we provide qualified, trauma-trained child care experts, and if we furnish a room in the court with child-friendly furniture and activities, will you allow us to do that to protect the children? And the answer was yes.
Fantastic.
So we started doing that 1 day a week, and then they asked us to increase it to 2 days a week. And then COVID came. And COVID, of course, stopped everything. However, COVID did something really, really good because during COVID, we all learned how to use Zoom, didn't we? So did the courts. And listen to my sarcasm font. They discovered that people can give evidence remotely. So they started doing that, and that was really great. But now most courts are now have learnt from the experience that we offered and are offering childcare in a safe room at the courts for when women actually do have to come to court. So we no longer have to do that. We ended that program not because it failed. We ended that program because it succeeded. And I'm really, really proud of that.
I can understand you feeling very proud about that. I'd love to understand the level of anxiety you've taken out of that experience,
Oh,
particularly
look,
there for the day.
it it's horrendous. It's just absolutely horrendous. You're sitting there, your perpetrator's looking at you. You feel, I don't have it's awful. And the
Mm,
children, some of them are terrified of their perpetrator. Some of them, s- he's still daddy. It's not always the male, but it's usually the male. He's still daddy. They still love him.
mm,
You can still love somebody and be frightened at the same time. It's an awful situation to place anybody in, particularly children.
mm,
I started saying, being quite forceful with the politicians. I said, we've got stringent rules and regulations, child safety for schools, churches, synagogues, mosques, community organizations. Why don't we have that in our courthouses?
mm.
So they're working on it. It's good.
And I've got to ask you, when you were trying to instigate some of these programs that are truly remarkable, did you feel intimidated if you were approaching a politician or the courts or the people that were administrating? Did you ever feel like uneasy? How are they going to react? But you were very bold.
In my private life, I'm very shy, but I'm like a bulldog with a bone when I've got something to follow through. And this was bigger than but than me. This was important. Somebody had to say something, and that's somebody had to do something, and that's something I've learnt very strongly through my family background.
Mm. Well, Kathy, to be greatly admired. I'd like to move on a little bit and talk about volunteering because this is a huge component of your work. One of the most impressive aspects of Impact for Women is the way that you've mobilized thousands of volunteers. Why do you think community involvement and volunteering is so important in supporting vulnerable families?
That's a really good question. Um, I can answer more easily why community involvement is important. Why for women to not believe that somebody cares. There's one woman I'm thinking about in particular who wrote us a very long letter who described how when she went into a refuge and then you do all the administrivia, and then they handed her a red bag, which was a bag from Impact, which was full of practical things like a toothbrush, like toothpaste. Because when I started in 2006, those weren't given even. And when you leave home in what you're standing in with your children's hands in your hands, and that's it. You don't think about going and getting your toothbrush or a hairbrush or anything. So in those days, that was some of the stuff that we gave. When I retired, we still were giving all those basic things, basic uh, hygiene products. We were giving some basic makeup, and that was interesting because one woman said to me, and she didn't look like a woman who used makeup very often. And she said to me, the makeup was really important. And I, as an idiot, said to her, oh, that made you feel better. And she said, no, Kathy, it hid the bruises.
Mm,
So, suddenly makeup wasn't a nice thing to give, it was an essential.
mm,
We gave everybody a treat. We gave everybody a gift for just because. And so this woman, when she received that red bag and looked in it, she knew she was being hugged. She knew she was being held. Somebody cared. And then I said to her, "What was the best thing in that bag?" And she said, "You won't believe it. It was the chocolate. Chocolate. I needed chocolate." So it was, chocolate's just another symbol, isn't it, of being hugged and held.
yes, yeah. Now, Kathy, I want to just turn to your other area of work as a Jewish leader within the Melbourne community, and you've contributed a lot to the interfaith work. How has this community experience just shaped your approach to helping others, do you think?
Oh, look, it's who I am. And I often describe myself as having drunk the spirit of volunteerism with my mother's milk. My mother is a Holocaust survivor, and the story before her family was arrested and put in camp and then they were in hiding was in the town that she lived in. Was very close to the Polish border, and it actually had the last transit camp before Auschwitz. And my grandfather was appalled with what was happening there. And so, uh, putting his family at risk, he organised a group of his friends. They bribed the Red Cross for their armbands. They took off their yellow star and put on the Red Cross armbands and voluntarily walked into the transit camp to remove corpses from the cattle trains, to remove the toilet buckets, and to give the prisoners their last drink of water. And it's that story that probably drives me most. If he could do that, then I can do something as little as giving somebody a gift.
Mm. Yeah. That's
It's,
a remarkable story. Kathy, in terms of the just chatting quickly about the issue of safety, just in
mm,
light of what happened at Bondi Beach on December 14th, 25 last year, do you feel safe living as a Jew in Melbourne?
I didn't feel safe before that. Um, my parents arrived here just a few months before I was born, and they came here looking for a country that was safe, that was open, that was friendly, and that's what they found. My mother is still alive. She is nearly 97. She has advanced dementia. And while that is incredibly cruel and horrible to watch, and she would be furious if she knew, I'm really glad that she doesn't know what's been happening since the 7th of October in 23. It was a few weeks after October 7th. I was visiting my grandchildren in Queensland, and my neighbours rang to tell me that a swastika had been painted on my front door. So I've felt unsafe since then. But again, the example of my grandfather keeps coming to my mind. If there's something wrong, you have an obligation to say something or do something. And so uh, I and most people that I know, while we're scared or feeling vulnerable, that's not going to stop us from living. That's not going to stop us from experiencing joy. That's not going to stop us from speaking out against evil. And that's the way we live our lives.
Mm. And I know that, as I mentioned earlier, you're involved with the interfaith group
Mm.
down in Dandenong, which is one of the biggest of its type in the country, which is incredible. What the sense of community that is amongst those folk? Just describe that to us.
I've been involved in interfaith work since I can remember, and I love it. Human beings are human beings, and the vast majority of us are good people. And I have to keep remembering that too. I remember as a child, I once asked my mother how come she doesn't hate all Germans, given what been through, and she said, "The ones who did that are dead."
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
Uh, and uh, I had a brother who was blown up by a suicide bomber in 97. Do I hate all Palestinians? Of course not. You know, there are good people, there are bad people in everywhere.
Mm.
Most people are good. And they're the people we need to connect with, and they're the people that we have to be friendly with, and they're the people that we have to work together to make the world a better place. And that's incredibly important to me. I think I mentioned to you earlier, Ian, my personal theology is that all religions actually are the same at their core, in that they all want us to be the best human being we can be. And when I do interfaith work with students in particular, I often describe it as a GPS. If I want to go to Chadstone, for example, I can go down North Road or I can go down Dandenong Road. I'm going to Chadstone. It's just a slightly different route.
Mm.
And that speaks to young people. And I'm glad, and I think that's really important. There are far more similarities between us all than there are differences. And if we can focus on the similarities, we can work out the differences.
Now, Kathy Kaplan, I'm just thinking into the future now. How can we hold someone down like you? But have you got it? Is there anything on the horizon for Kathy Kaplan? Another project at store by any
Oh,
chance?
I'm pretty busy. I'm on a few boards and doing a few things, yes. Lots of time to rest when I'm dead.
Well, thank you, Kathy, for sharing your story and for the incredible work you continue to do for women, children, and families across our community. Your journey really reminds us that practical compassion and community action can truly change lives. So, your leadership through Impact for Women continues to provide hope, dignity, and support to people facing some of the most difficult circumstances in their life. Thank you for being our guest here at Monday Matters today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. We hope you've been inspired by Kathy's story. Next week, our guests are from the community doctor in Ringwood, and we'll be discussing how the practice delivers patient-centered care.